Hi guys, welcome to another video. And for today's video I've come to Saltburn by the sea for a spot of fine art photography. Okay, so I joke. What I've actually done is I've come to Saltburn by the sea to take some long exposures on my little Panasonic GH5 Mark II. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to fit a 6 times or a 10 times neutral density filter to get that kind of milky water effect. I probably will go for mono conversions, simply because I think it suits that style quite nicely. I know a lot of people do call this fine art photography. It isn't fine art photography, but it is creative photography. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up and I'm going to switch you to the EVF view so you can see what I'm doing. Right, so that's my quickly composed shot. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm basically going to take it to a square crop. So like that. And then the next thing is to take it to a monochrome profile. Now obviously I'm shooting in RAW anyway, so it's not the end of the world if I don't do that, but I just sort of like to be able to visualise it during the composition stage as such. And I think I'm going to bring it in a bit tighter. I'm going to focus on the buildings at the front. I'm going to take that to f14. Now I'm a little bit concerned about diffraction, if I'm being honest. I try not to get too hung up on these sort of things, but smaller sensor theoretically means I might be more prone to diffraction. I'm going to get rid of the sky as well. So I think that's a bit of a cleaner composition. Let's take that one and see how it's looking. Let's give me a 40th of a second, so it's not really. As you can see the waves there, you can definitely see the water. It's definitely not milky by any shape or form. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to fit one of these, which is basically a neutral density filter. And what it does, it effectively blocks out 6 stops of light. And that means in turn I will get a longer exposure because there's less light coming through. So basically what the camera has to do, it has to try and adjust for the less light coming through. So the base ISO is set to ISO 200. The aperture is going to stop at f14, and basically, as I just screw that on, and if we go back to the live view, you'll see that straight away it looks darker, and now it's saying basically just over a second. But if you look at the histogram, you can see that actually I'm going a little bit underexposed. So I'm going to use exposure compensation of 1 stop, which is quite normal when using this sort of filter. 3 second self timer again. And you can see the water looks a lot better, but it's definitely not milky. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to swap it out now for a 10 times. Now this one's a larger one, this is a 77mm thread, and I've used an adapter ring just to bring it down to the right size for my lens. And you'll see from the EVF that it's gone darker still. So now it's given me, a 50 seconds. I'm going to bring the exposure compensation up more, which is now giving me 60-second exposure. And basically what's going to happen now is just going to literally just whir away, take the shot. I'm quite liking the fact that the GH5 Mark II's got a countdown going on, so I can see what's actually happening. And now it will take, effectively it'll take another shot where it tries to clean the noise up. So it'll take another 60 seconds where it doesn't physically take a shot, but it takes a shot so it can sort of work out what the noise is and try and sort the noise out. I'm not really sure how it works exactly, not being that geeky. But that does mean that this one shot has taken effectively 2 minutes to take, so it'll be 1 minute of exposure and 1 minute of clean-up time. just have a look at the shot quickly. Of course, I will check the histogram. All looks good, loads of detail going on in there. So yeah, I think that shot's in the bag, and I'll put it on the screen for you now to have a look at. And then I took a second shot, but this time I switched the camera to portrait, and I actually also went for the full aspect ratio. And I think I actually prefer this one. So as you can see, I haven't moved very far, but basically, instead of focusing on the pier down there, what I'm doing now is I'm going for the cliffs in the distance, and I'm doing quite an abstract shot. Again, a square crop. I'm getting 40 seconds, f10, ISO 200, and I'll put it on the screen for you now. So a few things to keep in mind if you're planning to do some long exposure photography like this. First of all, you need something moving within your frame, and that may sound like really obvious, but it's an easy one to overlook. So you either want water, or you want clouds really, or you can even do it with traffic and people. But what you want is lots of movement. And then that movement's obviously going to get blurred out, so what you need to try and do is pre-visualise what it's going to look like when it's blurred. Which with water is quite simple. With clouds, it's not too hard to predict, really. The problem with clouds is you have to try and work out how long an exposure you need. With people it's more difficult because it depends how fast they're moving. Same with cars, how fast they're moving. You know, if they're moving too fast, you might find that they actually totally disappear, which can be really useful for city scenarios. But if you want to try and sort of introduce that feeling of sort of movement, you need to get your shutter speed just right, so you actually keep some of the actual movement in shot and don't let it totally disappear. Now also what you will find is that simple compositions work the best, but what you do want, you want something static within your frame, which is quite nice and bold, quite graphic, something to really be the main focus of your shot, and then let the movement happen around it. I have taken photos where it is just a big blur of movement, and really you sort of get into ICM, intentional camera movement, that sort of abstract sort of feel, and that's not what I'm trying to achieve today. I'm just trying to achieve interesting shots of quite a well-known location, but shot a little bit more creatively. Okay, I'm on the pier. As you can see, there's lots of people walking around. This will be a good demonstration of what actually happens with people during long exposures. Because theoretically, as long as they keep on moving, they should magically disappear. The pier is mine. Just need to try and get that focus as good as possible. I think that's about one. This has to be one. I'm going to put the shot on the screen now. So that ended up being quite a difficult shoot, mainly because of the amount of people on the pier. And obviously as the light levels have dropped, with the 10 times filter on, I was really struggling to focus. And that is generally the way when doing long exposures. Now if you're using a DSLR, you may find it's actually quite hard to actually get that focus once the filter's in place. So what I would recommend is actually focusing your shot before you put the filter on. So you can use autofocus still, but without the filter on, focus, switch your camera to manual focus, and then carefully screw on your filter, making sure not to knock your focusing when you put it on. And that way, that does work. But obviously, using a mirrorless, it's actually quite quick. But yeah, when light levels drop, ultimately it gets a lot harder. But I think I'm really pleased with the last shot, and I think it's a nice fitting end for this video. So I hope you've enjoyed it. It's been quite a short one, but it's just been nice to come out for a couple of hours and get a little bit creative with the little Panasonic GH5 Mark II, which really I was quite keen to see how Micro Four Thirds performed, and I think it's done all right. Anyway guys, I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please give it a thumbs up, and maybe subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and I'll see you again soon for another one. Thanks for watching.